What is segregation? Segregation means to separate groups for a purpose of isolation. In America, this has typically been between black and white people. Many people only think about how people were separated and not about the deep facts that caused it to happen. Let's explore some of these events that caused segregation. At the end of the Civil War in 1865, the Confederate soldiers wanted to prevent blacks from voting, holding political offices, and attending schools. As a result, they created a group called the Ku Klux Klan, also known as the KKK. The KKK used violence to intimidate blacks from moving forward. Thereafter, the word segregation caught everyone's attention. In 1892, the case of Plessy versus Ferguson started the phrase separate but equal, meaning that blacks and whites should have the same thing of equal quality, but they couldn't do it together. There were different restrooms, water fountains, waiting rooms, hotels, bars, and telephone booths for the blacks and whites. Although the quality were to be the same, they were different. Blacks wanted the same thing and didn't want it to be separate. Blacks were not allowed to move into white neighborhoods. Whites believed if blacks moved into white neighborhoods that their property values would begin to lower, so the United States government made a policy to separate the countries. Whites were given the opportunity to make low-interest mortgages. Blacks weren't able to get loans because of the planners of the initiative made blacks' neighborhoods, the United States, unable to them, meaning decline. The initiative stated areas in decline cannot get loans. It really meant that black families could not get loans. The government made communities for blacks by building elevated highways throughout their neighborhoods. Because of this kind of mistreatment, blacks were ready to fight back. The period of fighting back is now civil rights movement. People tried to stop segregation through actions like marching. One of the key events in the civil rights movement was the Montgomery bus boycott. On Thursday, December 1st, 1955, in downtown Montgomery, Alabama, a black woman named Rosa Parks came boarded on a bus on Cleveland Avenue around 6 p.m. After paying her fare, she sat in the first row that was reserved for the blacks. A little while later, on the bus, a few whites came aboard. The bus driver named James Blake saw that there were no more seats left, so he instantly got up and demanded that 4 black passengers give up their seats. They completed James' demand, but one did not. Rosa had just got off of work and was tired, so she sat there. James Blake soon called the police to arrest her. Because of Rosa Parks' act of civil disobedience, the Montgomery bus boycott began. After black citizens heard about Rosa's arrest, they were determined to find out why. E.D. Nixon, who was in the NAACP, called the police to find out. E.D. Nixon was cussed out and hung up on by the police. E.D. Nixon didn't give up, though. He knew who to call, and he did so. He asked Clifford Durr. Clifford Durr was a compassionate lawyer. Martin Luther King Jr., a political activist, Baptist minister, and a wonderful speaker, heard about this. Something overcame him and told him that a protest was needed. Martin was a leader of the civil rights movement. A meeting was held at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, where King was the pastor. He stated that they would fight back by boycotting the bus company. On December 5, 1955, blacks began riding buses. Some walked, some had cars and gave others rides, or they rode mules. They did whatever it took to resist riding public transportation. Very few blacks rode the bus. As the boycott continued, Martin and the other community leaders had another meeting discussing future actions. This organization was named the Montgomery Improvement Association, and King was the president. As the bus boycott resumed, whites took more action. The white communities couldn't resist any longer and started to fight back for terrorism and harassment. Blacks that waited on the street for rides were arrested for littering. Carpooling drivers were also arrested for picking up hitchhikers along the road. For more that year, blacks still marched and boycotted. The United States Supreme Court had to put an end to this action. The United States Supreme Court had stated that in the Alabama state, segregation on buses were illegal on November 13, 1956. The boycott lasted for 381 days, which was 1 year and 16 days. Like Martin Luther King Jr., there were of course other civil rights leaders such as Reverend J.A. DeLange. Reverend J.A. DeLange preached to many women, men, and children about how they were born into a sacred life. Reverend J.A. DeLange believed that an educational inequality in Clarendon County, South Carolina was a chance to make changes and differences. Reverend J. A. DeLange was a preacher at the county's local church and the teacher of principal of one of the county's black schools. The way he talked influenced parents to start a legal battle. The case was called Briggs versus Elliott. In 1952, this case was one of the 4 cases that was along with the Brown versus Board of Education. Reverend J. A. DeLange kept the plaintiffs together because of the forced pressure. Now that you learn more about segregation, how do you feel? Has any thoughts or feelings changed for the things that you never thought you would change? Would you have been in some of the things that you just heard of to stop segregation, or would you just have left it alone? Today, people are prejudiced and still treat others with discrimination as if segregation is still around and no one's better than themselves. Think about it.